I fear not the dark itself, but what may lurk within it. Welcome to Lurk, bringing you creepy, strange, and bone-chilling stories, with your host, Jamie Jackson.
Hey lurkers, welcome to this week's episode. I know I have been kind of missing in action, so to speak, off and on here. It's been a little bit hectic here, and well, it's just been hectic. So sometimes things have to slip by the wayside, and unfortunately, it ends up being the podcast, not by choice, but just the way things work. I don't know about everybody out there, but I sure as heck feel like it has been really nuts the past couple of months. With natural disasters, everything going on in the world, on the verge of World War III, all the conflict going on, the storms that we've had here in the United States. And I do want to say that thoughts and prayers are with everyone affected by Hurricane Helene in Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. It went right through the area where the Appalachian Trail is located, and we talked about quite a few places that were affected. Irwin, Tennessee is one of them. We've covered stories along that whole stretch of trail in the Haunted Trail series. So it's kind of devastating for me. Not anywhere near as devastating as the people who are living it. And it's just horrendous. And then, of course, last night we had Hurricane Milton go through Florida, and there was destruction there with the tornadoes. I think the last count I saw was 126 tornadoes. Anyway, thoughts and prayers with everybody in Florida affected by that. It's just been, I don't know, I feel like if I go to sleep, I wake up and there's just more crap that's happened. Your head's on a swivel. There's so much stuff going on. Anyway, with that being said, hopefully I can get things back on track here and try to have things be a little bit more even keel. Because, let's face it, when the world is a flippin' mess, you really need to have something that is consistent. So I will do my best to try to provide that for you. For this week, we are doing things a little differently. I have some updated information that I've had for a while now on an episode, and I just haven't gotten around to sharing the information with you. So I decided that I would play the episode, the original episode in its entirety, and at the end, I will come in with the updated information and share with you what I learned. It's not, nobody's been found. This is the Tom Messick missing person case. Nobody was found. It's just additional information that offers a little bit of explanation for some of the strange things that happened. So we're going to go ahead and start playing the original episode for you now. To get into today's episode, we are going to be discussing a missing 411 case. It's actually two missing cases and some odd information near the end that sort of ties in with them. It seems missing 411 cases are some of the most popular episodes that I do here on the podcast. I don't know if it's the unknown, the unsolved part that makes them so intriguing, but both on the podcasting platforms and on the YouTube channel, they receive the most listens and views. So here we're going to do another one for you. The main case that I'm going to be talking to you about is the case of hunter Thomas Messick. I'm also going to touch on the case of Fred Drumm. Both of these occurred in New York. Tom Messick disappeared November 15th, 2015, and at the time of his disappearance, he was 82 years old. He was 5 foot 10 inches tall and about 160 pounds. He was a veteran, having served in the United States Army as a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division. This is a relatively elite division. Tom Messick was married for 56 years. He had 3 sons, and his family said he was the type of person who made friends with everyone he talked to. He loved the outdoors, and he spent a lot of time hunting and fishing all of his life. He and his family and friends spent a lot of time camping and traveling together. His one friend, Sid, who was going to be mentioned a few times, they worked at the same company and they got leave at the same time, so they vacationed together when they were off of work, and they camped together. Their families did. Tom also taught survival classes as well as hunter safety classes for many years. At one point, he had an accident with some gunpowder that blew up in his hand and face, requiring 159 stitches in his hand and the loss of his eye. He used to tell his students in hunter safety, "This is what happens when you aren't careful." He used hearing aids, which really isn't very surprising. He's 82 years old. I know some people my age who probably could use hearing aids as well, but they probably don't work for selective hearing. If they did, there would be a 15-year-old in my home who would also be wearing them. Basically, to sum that all up, Tom's a badass at 82. He's a veteran. He's a paratrooper, a former paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne. He's teaching survival classes. He's teaching hunter safety classes. He is hunting, camping, fishing, being outside his entire life. So we're talking somebody who is familiar with the outdoors, knows how to handle himself in the outdoors. Tom wasn't much of a drinker, other than maybe a can of beer at the end of a hunt or something similar, but he didn't really drink much at all. Tom Messick had a camp in the Lake George Wild Forest on Brant Lake, and he and his friends would often get together for hunts up there. So on November 15th, 2015, 7 men, including Tom, went up to the camp to do a little hunting. Later in the day, it was a little bit after lunchtime, Tom and the other 6 hunters decide to try hunting in an area they hadn't hunted before, though it really wasn't very far from camp. They opted to go to the area of Lily Pond. The area was accessed by Lily Pond Road, that was a rutted dirt road about 2 miles long that ended at a parking area at the pond. The men parked their trucks and they set out to hunt. Now, because 4 of the men were older, all 4 in their 80s, they planned to do a type of hunt known as a slow drive. Basically, you have hunters stationed in a specific area that wait while other men drive the deer down towards them. This would mean the older men wouldn't need to be hiking through the woods and would only need to sit and wait. So the older guys walked down Lily Pond Road and spread out about 100 yards apart and walked about 30 to 40 yards into the woods and then sat down to wait for the deer to show up. It would be important in this type of hunt not to get up and wander around. You want to stay in your area so you don't get shot or shoot someone else. And being a hunter safety instructor, this would be something Tom knew and something that he taught his students many, many times. I can attest to this because I actually took hunter safety back in the day. So when you're a hunter safety instructor, the important word there is safety. That's what you're drilling into your student's head, to be safe at all times. So you can't, in this type of hunt, get up, walk around, wander around, because somebody might think you're a deer and shoot you. Quite literally, it's happened. So Tom's friend Al was the first one in. He was closest to the parking area. Then 100 yards away from him was Sid. Then 100 yards away from him was Joe. And then Tom was 100 yards away from Joe, and he was on the end furthest away from the parking lot. The three younger hunters, including one of Tom's sons, followed the snowmobile trail to the ridge above where the four older hunters were in order to drive the deer down to where they were sitting. Again, as I have stressed, the watchers, which would be the four older men, do not move due to safety issues. So what's going to happen here is the three younger guys are on the hill above where the older men are sitting, and they're going to come down through the woods, spooking the deer up and driving them down the hill to where the other men are sitting. That's why it's called a slow drive. You are forcing the deer down. You're driving them down to the hunters. At the time of the hunt, Tom was wearing a red and black plaid cap, a camo jacket, coveralls, and duck boots. He had a walkie-talkie with him, and he knew how to use it. He also had a rifle with 3 to 4 bullets and a snack. As the hunt progressed, no one saw any deer. In fact, there was no sign of any animals at all. While they're waiting, Tom's friend Sid hears a strange noise he believes came from about 150 yards away from the direction of the top of the hill. He has a hard time explaining the noise. It's something he's never heard before or since, and he said it was metallic, like a trap closing. All 7 men had walkie-talkies on the same channel. All 7 men knew how to use them, and no one heard anything odd on the walkie-talkies at all. The hunt lasts about 2 hours, and in that time, no one sees or hears any wildlife. About 3 p.m., the men gather at the vehicles. All the men, that is, except for Tom. Tom does not respond to repeated calls on the walkie-talkie, so they go out looking for him. After all, he's not very far away, just a few hundred yards. Slightly further away than a football field. They fired off some shots, hoping Tom would be able to hear them and make his way to where they were. Someone went to notify the rangers to let them know that they had a missing person. The others kept looking. Sunset was at 7:34 p.m. on November 15th in 2015. At dark, the group splits up. 3 men go back to the camp, and the other 3 stay at the truck overnight. The men at the truck continue to fire off shots and honk the horn throughout the night. Tom's son calls his mother to let her know that his dad is missing. He tells her not to worry, that he's certain that they're going to find him, and she also believes that he's going to be found, so she's not worried enough to make the drive, and it's not very far away, but she's not going to come out to the lake. She figures in the morning he's going to come out of the woods and everything's going to be good. After all, the guy was a survival instructor. He's well versed in managing a night in the woods. Early on the morning of November 16th, 2015, the formal search starts with the staging area for the search set up in a small town of Horicon, New York. New York State Rangers were in charge of the search operation. The search was thorough and extensive. The Air National Guard had a helicopter there with infrared, as well as state police helicopters. All terrain was covered, including wading through swampy areas. The search teams used something called bump lines, which is where a line is tied across the starting point and then a line is tied across the end point in an area that they're searching. And in the group of searchers, one person has string, the person on the end. The string is tied to the starting line, and as they make their way down, as they're searching shoulder to shoulder, they are letting out string, and when they get to the end line, they tie the string off to that. They rotate around, so the guy with the string is on the end again. He ties the string to the ending line, and they make their way shoulder to shoulder down to the start line again, where the string is tied off again. And they do this all the way down to the end of the start and end lines. This basically ensures that there are no areas that go unsearched. When they were done going one way, they would turn around and go back and retrace their steps and search the same areas again, going the opposite direction. Tom Messick's son said it looked like a giant spider web in the woods with the lines going everywhere. Divers searched Lily Pond and all streams and swamps within the search grid. At one point, there were 300 searchers looking for Tom Messick. There were approximately 50 to 60 total organizations involved in the search, which included 12 volunteer fire departments and their members. New York State Corrections came out with their canine units, as well as volunteer search and rescue teams with their canine units. There weren't any hits. The dogs didn't pick up a scent. There was a theory that possibly Tom got to a road and ended up getting hit by a car. So all the roads in the area were searched to see if he was lying on the side of the road somewhere. He wasn't. Animal attack was ruled out because there would have been some indication of the attack. There would have been some evidence of a struggle. Now, if you've listened to any of the other episodes, we've kind of touched upon that, but if an animal is coming to attack somebody, you don't just go limp and lay there and let the animal chew on your face. That's not how it works. You fight. There's going to be evidence of the animal attacking you. There's going to be signs of a struggle. There's going to be drag marks. There's going to be blood. There could be ripped clothing. Also, I'm pretty sure when an animal attacks, it doesn't take the rifle with them. So, in this search that they did for Tom, nothing was ever found, not even a candy wrapper. The undersheriff of Warren County said they expected to find a trace somewhere of something, like a weapon. He commented that a weapon won't blow away. It isn't going anywhere, but they never found it. Why I mentioned animals don't carry the weapon off with them. They don't have a use for them. They don't taste good. The undersheriff also said that the area was oddly devoid of wildlife. There were no squirrels or chipmunks or deer. There were no signs of anything. On day 4 of the search, interestingly, 2 FBI agents show up. There is a lot of emphasis put on the fact that agents arrived on scene during a missing persons case, because it was stated that they don't typically show up on missing adult cases. So I figured, well, let me check this out. I don't like to take things at face value. I try to look into it as best I can. So what I found, the official information stated, in a missing persons case, as a matter of cooperation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, will, at the request of state or local law enforcement agency, make available the facilities of the FBI Identification Division and the FBI Laboratory. Information pertaining to certain categories of missing persons, including missing children, may be entered into the missing persons file of the FBI-operated National Crime Information Center, or NCIC, by the local law enforcement agencies and, since passage of the Missing Child Act, by parents of missing children if the local law enforcement agency will not do so. The FBI Identification Division is basically a place offering fingerprint and other biometrics identification. Biometrics just means bio as in biology, anything to identify somebody. You're talking DNA, voice patterns, palm prints, facial patterns, etc. And it also offers uniform crime reporting, which basically amounts to crime data statistics, national background checks, and other investigative tools. So the short answer, the FBI offers their databases for missing adults. There is no mention of sending agents to a missing person case involving an adult. Unless, of course, the case involves foul play, or the last known location of the missing person is on federal land, like a national park or someplace like a Native American reservation. Also, a commercial ship in international waters would fall under FBI jurisdiction. The Lake George Wild area is, I believe, state-run. It is not a federal park. So the undersheriff of Warren County thought the FBI were there to provide some sort of technological support, but he didn't have contact with them himself. He wasn't sure who had contacted them. He stated he's never had them on any other search that he's been involved with. The FBI agents spoke to Tom Messick's wife, and they told her that Tom was a missing person and that they felt something was not right about this case, but until they recovered a body, they wouldn't know what it was. David Paulides, who you'll know from our other mentions of Missing 411 if you're familiar, he's the gentleman who basically coined the phrase Missing 411. He's written the books. It'll all be in the show notes, which is the description of the episode. David Paulides said that the FBI agents were monitoring the search, taking notes, writing reports, and sending them to Virginia to the Behavioral Analysis Unit, looking for similar cases. Paulides said he found reports dating back to the 1960s showing FBI monitored numerous missing persons cases eerily similar to Tom Messick. I do not have any information on exactly what those cases were. I don't have the names associated with those cases. Would be interesting to read them, though. The formal search for Tom Messick ended November 26, 2015. Search efforts continued for 3 years, but they failed to locate anything. Tom's son said, "Something odd happened, obviously. We just don't know what." A couple of days before the official search ended for Tom, Department of Conservation Rangers were pulled off the Messick search and sent 40 miles south to Schuylerville, New York. Because on November 24th, 2015, another man went missing. 9 days after Tom Messick disappeared, 68-year-old Fred "Fritzy" Drumm went missing. Fred Drumm lived on a rural farm with his wife on Burgoyne Road. He was a member of the Saratoga Town Board and was due to leave office in December of 2015. He was not going to go back for re-election. He was retired as town supervisor, was a member of the town's Board of Assessment Reviews, a member of the town planning board, and a youth baseball coach. He was an outdoorsman and a farmer. He and his wife owned 170 acres that he farmed for hay. He was also the caretaker of the property located across the street from his home. As I mentioned, he was 68 years old, 5 foot 5 inches tall, and between 170 and 180 pounds. He was last seen sometime between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. He had been heading out to go for a walk on the 170-acre property that abuts Fish Creek. His wife left the house to go to a grandparents' breakfast. When she returned home, Fred was nowhere to be found. His car and all his belongings were there, except that Fred did have his wallet with him that had his driver's license and a debit card. All vehicles that Fred Drumm had access to were located there at the residence. There was no information developed to indicate that he had left the area. A 900-acre area was searched by 30 state forest rangers, a dozen sheriff's officers, and 80 volunteers. The farm's pond was searched twice. 9 teams of 15 people with 2 sheriff's officers and canines searched a 900-acre grid with 20 separate grid blocks. More than 200 people helped in the search, including helicopters and canines. In the end, a total of 1,200 acres was searched, and this included the Hudson River, which was searched by the Sheriff's Marine Unit. The search was ended November 28th with the same outcome as Tom Messick's search. Nothing was found. No sign of Fred Drumm at all. Like Tom, Fred was an avid hunter, though no one thought he had actually gone out hunting that day. It wasn't really unusual for him to go just walk the property. If you're a farmer, I imagine walking your property and checking to make sure everything is good is something you would do on a regular basis. And honestly, my parents have just over 6 acres. And I've walked that property before. You just go outside to be outside in nature and you walk around. With 170 acres, there's a lot of places that you can walk, kind of going for a hike. There was no evidence of foul play in either of the disappearances. In the case of Tom Messick, he was physically unable to wander too far. So where exactly did he go? And if he was wandering in the woods, why wasn't anything ever found, like his rifle or clothing? Each year in the area, hunters are encouraged to keep an eye out for any evidence. I believe there is still a $10,000 reward in the case of Fred Drumm. While I was researching the Tom Messick case, I came across a Reddit thread. Is it called a thread? I have no idea. I don't do Reddit. I'm too old for Reddit, I guess. I don't know. I read it, it comes up in searches, I look at it, and it has some interesting points. Anyway, there was a thread that had an interesting story. Someone stated that they were reading about an unusual mass disappearance. And here is the actual text regarding that unusual disappearance. And the person brought it up. This was a thread that actually had something to do with Tom Messick's case. And they brought it up because of the noise that Tom's friend Sid heard before they discovered that he was missing. So here is the actual thread. I'm going to read what was typed there about this weird story. Not me, but my grandfather. My grandfather had been in World War II and told us about when himself and a few other soldiers had been separated from his unit and were trying to get to Normandy. They had gone through a clearing in a wooded area, but had to drop when they heard something approaching. They were on their bellies in low grass when they saw 20 or 30 German soldiers running across the clearing, clearly in a state of panic. Then they just froze in mid-step. He said they resembled statues, and that some weren't even touching the ground, and that there was no noise whatsoever. Even the birds had gone silent. After a few seconds came a loud noise, like metal scraping on concrete, and the frozen soldiers started to become blurry, to the point at which they vanished without a trace. This had been reported by all of the soldiers that were present, and all were called to the War Office, London, after their return to the UK, where they were pressed on what they saw over the period of a few days, and were taken back to the same spot in France shortly after the war had ended. Surprisingly, when they got there were other men who were sharing the same accommodation who reported similar occurrences in the exact same area. They were all taken to the woods and had to describe where and how the events took place. My granddad had said that the entire area was guarded heavily, and that part of the ground was heavily excavated. So the strangest thing of all the others, he said, was that there were hundreds of dogs in the area, just milling around for no apparent reason. They returned to the UK with a gag order, ordering them never to speak about any of this. He went back to the same spot in France before he died in 1985, and said that the area had been covered with unmarked warehouses and was guarded by an unusually professional security company. He reckoned they were military. I've tried to find out more about this, but can't find any records of it. But I do remember one of the guys who he was with that day. He used to come and visit sometimes and referred to the place as the Splintered Woods. I was not able to find any information to back up that story at all, and it could be completely made up, but it is intriguing. The strange sound that was heard by Tom Messick's friend Sid is a detail that sticks out. In the interview that I watched of him, Sid actually seems agitated when pressed for details of the sound. Sid's son says he has brought it up many times over the years because it has bothered him. You want to know where else people have described a metallic sound? Skinwalker Ranch. I believe the description was heavy machinery underground. I also think the Sherman family mentioned metallic noise coming from above them, from something they couldn't see. If you're not familiar with Skinwalker Ranch, you're missing out. And we definitely covered Skinwalker in episodes 9 and 10. It was a 2-part series. Go listen if you haven't already done so. Or listen again and get a refresher. I also want to note that the area where Tom Messick and Fred Drumm went missing is not very far away from another strange area that is known as the Bennington Triangle. It's another area that we covered in episode 12, and the area is known for several strange disappearances, a monster, aliens, and a man-eating rock. Now, the man-eating rock, personally, I'm convinced that that has more to do with a portal of some kind, and not that a rock is eating people. I think the rock is near a portal. People walk into the portal, they disappear, and the Native American connotation of that, the way they describe that, is they were eaten by the rock. That's my personal take on that story. To hear it in more detail, go listen to episode 12. So in my research, there were some other comments that I came across from people who live in the area of the Adirondacks, who know how strange the area is. It is a hotbed of UFO activity, and it has a long history of Sasquatch sightings. In fact, the area where Tom Messick disappeared is just across Lake George from where I attended the Sasquatch Festival in Whitehall, New York this past fall. I'm not saying at all that a UFO or Bigfoot is to blame here. I'm just pointing out that there are a lot of strange things going on around in this area. Some really, really strange things. And some of the area has a lot of unusual disappearances. Some where the people were never found. I also came across a show called These Woods Are Haunted that had an episode where a couple from Pennsylvania described hearing a noise like a chair dragging on concrete, but much louder and not mechanical or man-made sounding. This sound ties in with the sound described in that story that I read from World War II, which described metal being dragged across concrete. And personally, I kind of think there's a connection with that metallic sound that was heard by Sid when Tom Messick disappeared. In this particular episode, the husband went to investigate the sound, and he mentioned that there were no noises or animals, not even crickets. His comment was, "When the woods go quiet, there's something there that doesn't belong." If you spend any time outdoors at all, you know that's true. If you're outside and the crickets are going on and all of a sudden they stop, you automatically start looking around to see what's going on because something is close to those crickets that has made them shut up so that whatever is there doesn't get them. Creepy. Super creepy. Anyway, in this particular account, the couple from Pennsylvania was basically talking about a Bigfoot encounter. And again, I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm just giving you accounts of similar noises. In some of these missing 411 cases, I feel that there are logical explanations. Most notably, I think hypothermia is high on the list of some of them, or an abduction by a human being, not UFOs or Bigfoot. But the two cases that I covered here are different, especially with Tom Messick's case. There's a strange noise, then he's just gone. He's an experienced hunter and outdoorsman, a survival instructor, and a hunter safety instructor. I know back in 1985 or 86, whichever, when I did hunter safety in Maryland, there was a whole thing on getting lost. I imagine it might still be included in the instruction, and should definitely be in survival training, if not in his military training. And an 82-year-old is not going to get very far in those woods. But let's assume that he does get further than you might expect. Would he really keep carrying a heavy rifle? I don't think so. I think if we assume that he's wandering around, it's getting dark, he's getting sleepy, I can't imagine that he's going to carry that rifle. I think he's going to put it down. So where the heck is the rifle? What happened to it? It didn't blow away. I mean, that's what the undersheriff said. A rifle doesn't blow away. Then you got Another guy going missing 40 miles away 9 days later. You have the FBI showing up on a missing adult case when they don't typically show up for missing adults. They offer their use of their technology in their labs, but that doesn't require them to show up and monitor what's going on. It certainly doesn't require them going to the wife of the missing man and telling her, you know what, there's something really weird going on here, but we're not going to know what that is unless we recover a body. I don't know. These have my head scratching. These have me scratching my head. Whatever the heck the saying is, I don't know. I'm scratching my head. I can't really I really just can't figure out what exactly happened in these cases. Okay, lurkers, now it's time to give you the updated information that I received probably over a year ago and am now just getting around to let you know about. It is about the Tom Messick case. That was the case of the older gentleman who was hunting with his sons and friends where they heard the metallic noise and they couldn't find him. So I was contacted by someone who had heard information from another hunting party that was in the same area at the same time. And he gave me the phone number contact for one of those people. So what was told to me was that this hunting party who was there hunting at the same time, they had brought in an ATV. I don't know if it was more than one. It doesn't really matter. The ATV isn't really the important part. But they brought it in on a trailer. Now, the metallic noise, they told me, was the sound of the trailer ramp dropping down. Now, if you have ever heard the noise of one of those metal trailer ramps being put down, you know exactly what it sounds like. And the minute he told me that they had brought this ATV in on this trailer and told me that the trailer had dropped down, that the ramp had dropped down, I immediately heard that in my head and was kind of like, aha, that is the metallic noise. I can hear that. I know what that sounds like, and I think that could have actually been the noise. And that was basically what he was telling me, that was the metallic sound that was heard. It was the sound of the trailer ramp being put down. They weren't supposed to have an ATV. They're not allowed in that area, so to admit that they had them, I believe what he was telling me. And this isn't a young guy telling me the story. This was an older gentleman. And they had actually shot a large buck, and they were using the ATV in order to bring it back to where the vehicles were. Rather than have to drag it out themselves, they brought the ATV in order to bring it out easier. They weren't allowed to, so he was admitting to doing something they were not allowed to do. He also said that at the time, they were in the parking lot waiting with Tom Messick's group, and that they were not overly concerned about the fact that he was not back yet. They kept insisting, oh, he'd be out, don't worry about it. Now, he had some survivalist training. He's a veteran. I could see where his group would think, yeah, he's not going to be a problem. He knows what he's doing. He's going to be out there. Probably would have had the same thought, so I don't really fault them for that. I was told that they were drinking a beer. I don't necessarily think that they were like overindulging or anything. I think they were just having a beer while they waited for, a member of their party to make their way out. I was also told that while they were waiting, there was a single gunshot. They did hear a single gunshot. Again, nobody was super concerned about anything. So the metallic noise was explained away. It is not an alien, I don't think. I don't think it was some crazy dimension. I think it was indeed the ramp to that trailer dropping down to get the ATV off of the trailer. I'm not really sure why Tom would decide to get up and walk away, but it's entirely possible. And according to the person that I spoke to, who is familiar with the area, it's incredibly swampy. And he felt that it was definitely within the realm of possibility and more than likely probability that Tom somehow tripped, fell into a swampy area, and kind of sank down. And that included the gun. That maybe Tom didn't sink down, but the gun definitely, if dropped, would have sunk. And it's a vast area, very swampy, and you probably wouldn't see where it was. And you would have no idea where to look for it. So, still a lot of questions involving, why did he get up and move from the area when he really wasn't supposed to? What drew him away? And where he ended up. How did he end up getting so lost when he has such extensive knowledge and background in survival methods? I was told this information was shared with David Paulides, who opted to not include that in anything. So that's going to do it for this episode. Like I said, it's a little strange. Most of it was an older episode with a little bit of update there at the end, but I definitely wanted to make sure that I included it because I have been dragging my feet getting this done. And definitely, if you have some information on any of the topics that have been covered, please reach out to me. I am more than happy to talk to you, converse with you. If you think I've got something wrong, I am more than happy to hear about it as long as it's done in a nice way. I don't entertain internet trolls. And, please reach out to me. Let me know if you know something specific about a particular case or story. And we'll get it right. Anyway, you know the drill. You can find us wherever it is that you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can find us at lurkpodcast.com, and there you'll find all of the episodes along with our social media links. Now, I've been pretty lax, not just in recording, but also in updating the social media, because I am a one-man band, ladies and gentlemen, and I am doing this on my own. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have a YouTube channel that needs to be updated, and we also have a TikTok, which, let's face it, I'm Gen X, and really not up on the TikTok. Is that how you say it? The TikTok? Anyway, working on that. I've got a free weekend coming up here, and I'm really hoping to be able to knuckle down and get some stuff done. And if you have any suggestions, thoughts, whatever, reach out to me. You can reach out at the Yahoo address at lurkpodcast@yahoo.com. Feel free to send me a DM in any of the social media, mostly Facebook or Instagram. I'm not as involved with the Twitter or the TikTok yet. So definitely reach out to me and give me your thoughts. And until next time, keep lurking.